Okay, so we had the first of our two major Breeders' Cup preview weekends this past weekend, mostly at Santa Anita and Aqueduct, and then we're looking forward to Keeneland and Aqueduct this weekend. We'll talk about those races in a little bit, but there was a result outside of those two tracks that was pretty notable. It was Mystic Dan winning the Lucas Classic, which has kind of grown in importance over the years. It's a Grade 2 now, and I think we were kind of lucky in a way that the rest of Mystic Dan's 3-year-old campaign was so bad that we were able to see him as a 4-year-old, because this is the kind of horse, if he had an incredible 3-year-old campaign where he won the Derby and a couple other races, chances are he would have been retired and sent off to stud. Instead, now we get the comeback story where he was off form for a while and he comes back, and now he wins a couple races at Churchill, his favorite track this year, including the Lucas Classic over the weekend. John, I know you were impressed with him.
Well, the thing that's so much fun for me is watching these older horses actually come back and compete at the highest levels. And you're right. Yeah, he loves the Churchill Downs. I mean, that's where he won the Kentucky Derby. It's where he won the Lucas Classic with another Grade 2. But it's just really fun for me as a fan of the industry to watch a horse like that come back at the highest of levels. And I thought it was interesting that after he won the Blame Stakes, immediately after that, Airdrie announced that they were going to stand him at stud at their Midway, Kentucky farm upon the conclusion of his racing career. But they said that it was open-ended as far as how long he was going to be able to race, and the fact that if he continued to compete at the highest level, that they were going to continue to roll the dice and let him run. So now our friends at Airdrie have not one but two Kentucky Derby winners that ultimately they'll be standing. But I just thought it's a great story. I'm glad to see horses like that, come off of some time off. The horse ran a bad Belmont, came back 6 months later and ran kind of a not great Malibu, finished off the board in a 9th in the Pegasus, and then was given 3 months off again before he actually came back and won finished second in a listed stake, won the Blame, ran close in the Arlington Million and the Stephen Foster Grade 1s, and now has another G2 next to his name. So he's got earnings now, Joe, of close to $5 million, the son of Golden Sense. But it warmed my heart to watch a horse like that come back and run. And I'll be curious to see, what they do with him between now and the Pegasus again next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great to see him come back around, and a good job by Kenny McPeek getting him back to his top form. So yeah, it was, like I said, it's a kind of a blessing in disguise that he didn't have a great 3-year-old year beyond the Derby, because we got to see him strut his stuff this year, and he's a super admirable horse. Golden Sense, kind of a blue collar sire, known as more of a sprinter miler, sire, but he's exceeded that and has kind of outrun his pedigree. And shout out to the owners who continued to campaign him, because that was an exciting win. The other results I wanted to touch on over the weekend, Bob Baffert seems to have the filly and mare division out west pretty cornered between Cavallari and what's that horse, Seismic Beauty. Rishi's a pretty nice horse, is a multiple graded stakes winner. He just has a lot of really nice fillies and mares on that side of the country that I think those horses are going to be a pretty stiff competitor for Torpedo Anna, and then hopefully Nitrogen as well. So I think the distaff has come around to looking like a pretty good race, when earlier in the year it didn't look like we had much in the way of the older filly and mare division. Rebels Romance was awesome in the Joe Hirsch. He's just the ageless wonder. Gunsong, I was there on Friday when she upset Randomized in the Bell Dame. She's become a pretty nice horse. Good job by Mark Hennig with her. Johannes was back in the City of Hope Mile, top turf horse in California last year. And the other thing I wanted to mention was just I don't know, it bums me out to see kind of what the Goodwood Stakes and the Woodward have become. Because, and this is kind of goes back to what I was saying about Mystic Dan, where, we probably wouldn't have seen him as a 4-year-old if he had a monster 3-year-old campaign. And just the fact that these horses don't really come back as older horses this year. Now, this year we were pretty lucky to get Sierra Leone and Fierceness and a couple others to come back as 4-year-olds. But in general, I was looking at the winners of the Goodwood. Nevada Beach won it this year. I got to be honest, I had not heard of this horse before he won the race on Saturday. the year before, Subsanador won. Don't know who that is. Before that, it was Slow Down Andy. Before that, it was Defunded. Before that, it was Medina Spirit. We know a little bit. Improbable, we know a little bit. Mongolian Groom before that. You got to go back to 2018 and when Accelerate won it before, you see a horse that actually factored in the Breeders' Cup Classic who had won the Goodwood Stakes. And, it's unfortunate that so many of these older, dirt races have kind of fallen by the wayside in terms of importance. And I mean, you look at the Woodward is the same way. I remember this was one of those races that used to be a major day on the calendar at Belmont. I still remember one of my favorite races of all time was Go Zapper and St. Liam hooking up in the 2004 Woodward. Like that was I was there that day. That was like one of the really formative races when I started following racing. Locked won it over the weekend. Like he's a nice enough horse, but he's not going to factor in the Breeders' Cup Classic. Before that, it was Tappet Trice, Zandon. Life is Good in 2002, obviously really nice horse. Before that, Art Collector, Global Campaign, Preservationist, Yoshida, and then you go back to Gunrunner in 2017. So those are two major races that have not had really any impact in the Breeders' Cup Classic in the last 10 years or so. So that is a little bit of a bummer, and I just wonder how long those races are for this world. And I think unfortunately, when those grade 6 calendars ultimately do get whittled down, to me, John, those are two of the races, especially the Woodward, that kind of should be on the chopping block, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you got to wonder, why that is, other than just that other racetracks have been a little bit more proactive as far as changing dates of some of their preps to basically back end into the Breeders' Cup. But Joe, I want to, we don't talk about California racing that much, and we certainly don't talk a lot about Baffert. But I got to give a tip of the cap to that team for finishing first, second, and third in the Zenyatta, the Grade 2, and the fact that Cavalieri was off since March of this year. So you're talking about a huge 6+ month layoff. And granted, she was even money in the race and ran like an even money horse. But for me, it looked like, that was just kind of a rust knocking race, as I call it, where she was just getting primed and ready for the distaff. So the California distaff fillies and mares are going to be heard from this year, especially because you wonder about, hey, is Torpedo Anna kind of hanging a little bit and maybe not up to her top level? We'll know this weekend as far as where she's at. Darth Vader has run a couple of huge races, and I have not heard that she's running in the Spinster. So my guess is that she's going to be taking a little bit of time and going directly into the distaff. But there's a gaggle of older mares, fillies and mares out in California that are going to be like, come on, baby, you're coming into our home turf now, and are running really solid numbers. And again, I was just so impressed by that Daughter of Nyquist to come off a 6-month layoff and really just run like I said, the even money favorite should be. So it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to play out.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, the distaff looks like a much better race now than it did 4 or 5 months ago, in the spring and the early summer. And yeah, we're going to learn a lot more about it on Sunday. We're going to talk about that, the Spinster, and the rest of the Keeneland and Aqueduct action this weekend as we really kind of put the final touches on the Breeders' Cup preps. Can't wait.